that our veterans should actually need. Over 300,000 of them coming home, and there's a daycare in the West Los Angeles VA hospital now for the public.
And
Big
I believe
space.
upstate New York is also going through some land at the VA facility that's going away.
The West Los Angeles VA hospital has homeless veterans sleeping along the fence by the VA. That's as close as they can get to the VA hospital because there's nothing inside.
But there's a great daycare there now.
great daycare that the governor of California, Arnold, has his children in.
Oh,
Well, Pat Quinn decided that it needs to be the voice of the people for the mandatory funding, and he did what he could do in the state. Cook County, the second largest county in the country, voted on it. 95% of the people agree with him. Our own county didn't.
no.
There may not have been enough time. We haven't found out from our election officials why we didn't get on there.
It's something I think we need to ask them, though. And not just us. Anybody out there can ask them, why was this not on our ballot?
But Pat Quinn also made a presentation for the stand down.
Yeah.
Made a presentation for your trip to Washington as well, that we were able to film. And well, let's take a look at Pat Quinn. Hi, John Blanchard with Muster America. I'm joining Lieutenant Governor Pat Quinn. Lieutenant Governor, thank you very much for your time, your busy schedule.
Well, really glad you're here. We really appreciate the good work you're doing. And number one, we want to say thank you to our veterans. Veterans Day should be every day in America, and certainly here in Illinois, the land of Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln said a long time ago during the Civil War that it's the duty of all of us on the home front to take good care of those who bear the battle on the front line for our democracy. And we have to do that. I believe in that, and I want to help in any way.
We recently, well, thank you. We recently came down and joined you at the press conference you had on the weekend concerning the mandatory funding that you got on the ballot in Cook County. I know Parika and several other Cook County officials were part of that. But 95% of the voters on the primary election in Cook County voted for mandatory funding. So two parts of my question. First of all, in your own words, I know you've said it before, but for our viewers, the importance of mandatory funding for VA medical. And then secondly, not every state has a Lieutenant Governor Pat Quinn. Not every state has L. Tammy Duckworth. How can we get the other states to get on board with this mandatory funding for VA medical?
Well, it is a national movement, John, and I think it's a very important movement for all our veterans. We want to make sure that when the VA, the Veterans Administration, comes up with a budget to take care of the health care needs of our veterans, that it isn't cut back by Congress or by the President. We want the VA to do its job, which is to provide decent health care for all of our veterans for everything they need. That's the least our country and all of us can do for those who have been on the front line for us. And so the law that we're proposing at the federal level, we had a referendum on it here in Illinois to get public support for it, says that when the Veterans Administration comes up with their budget for health care for our veterans, that is the final mandatory budget. There's no cutbacks by Congress, by the President, or anyone else. And the people of our state, and I think the people of America, believe in that and voted overwhelmingly, more than 90%, for this concept. We've got to get a federal law passed. I work with other lieutenant governors around the country. We want to make sure that they're on board with this. Got to get all our congressmen and senators, our candidates for president. This is a mission for 2008 for all of us.
Operation Firing for Effect 2008.org outlines all the procedures and pieces that you can do to become part of it. And thank you for your efforts on that. Please don't stop. Unemployment, not just in Illinois, but throughout the country, and more particularly unemployed veterans. There's such a huge number of that. But at the same time, we have so many jobs that are being shipped overseas because it's cheaper to make it overseas. Well, absolutely, two birds can be killed with one stone somehow. How might we start that in Illinois?
Well, I was in this very room some years ago fighting against NAFTA, which was one of those trade agreements that sent American jobs, manufacturing jobs in many cases, to another country. And I really think we've got to stand up for our manufacturing abilities here in America. We're second to none. We don't want to be exporting jobs to China or anywhere else, where if we can make it in America, we should make it in America. Having said that, It's so important that we work night and day to make sure that when our veterans come back for fighting, they fought for us, whether it's Vietnam, the Middle East, Iraq, Afghanistan, when they're fighting for us, when they come home, they shouldn't have to fight for a job. And I really feel that we've got to work with our employers in Illinois to make sure that our veterans come first. Veterans are well trained, they know discipline, they know teamwork, and we've got to make sure they get a decent chance at a decent job. Illinois does have a new law that provides a tax credit for employers every year for employing a veteran, and we want to make sure the employers know that. I've worked with Helmets to Hard Hats, which is a very good program to provide jobs in the construction industry to our veterans. There's another program called Troops to Teachers for veterans who want to be teachers. We want to make sure those young boys and girls in school learn from a veteran, and many veterans may be interested in that. So there's a lot of programs, but part of the job is to work every day at getting the word out and working with individuals who need a helping hand when it comes to just getting their foot in the door to get a good job. They'll take it from there.
Well, certainly from your office and Director Duckworth's office in the IDVA, Illinois is the most veteran-friendly state in the country, and I've traveled it to find out.
Oh, very good.
Absolutely, you've done a remarkable job. Yet in this decade, we have the highest number of veterans, homeless veterans, and disabled veterans ever. And that number is not going to diminish. All the way back pre-Vietnam era to the recent young men and women coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan. But not just the disabilities, but just the reintegration into society.
Tough.
So transitional facilities, healthcare facilities, everything that we need. There's a difficult problem or a difficult occurrence of getting these things built in neighborhoods. Not in my backyard mentality certainly prevails when something like this is going to be erected. How can we overcome that?
Well, I think all Americans should welcome our veterans to live in their midst. I was in Wheaton about a year or so ago, and there's a Nicholas Larson home there set up to help our veterans get readjusted. Nick Larson gave his life for our country in Iraq. The shelter is named in his honor. And it's very, very important that we remember that veterans who have suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder or traumatic brain injury or just the disruption of having to go away from home for a long period of time and then come back and kind of get readjusted, we've got to be there for them. And we started a program in Illinois called Veterans Cash. It's a lottery ticket. It's a scratch-off lottery ticket that provides funds for providing for veterans who happen to be homeless, to make sure they have shelter. It also is a program that provides funds for helping those who have post-traumatic stress disorder, which can come up not just a couple months after returning home, it might be years after they came home. And so we've got to make sure we have adequate funding for these programs. We want to make sure that every community in Illinois understands that this is part of being a good citizen. This is part of being an American. Our veterans are our most patriotic citizens. They deserve a salute every day. And many of them have endured great hardship. They've made great sacrifices for us, and we cannot forget them when they need us.
Well, Lieutenant Governor, thank you for your time. You've done a remarkable job. We are certainly glad that you are here in Springfield, and the efforts that you and Lieutenant L. Tammy Duckworth are doing for the state and veterans. Thank you.
Well, thank you, John. You're doing a great job.
Thank you. Yeah, for a Lieutenant Governor, we're awfully lucky to have Pat Quinn.
Yes, very. Yeah.
We've got a lot more shows to do.
Yes.
A lot more topics to cover. So, for John Blanchard,
I'm Eric Baylor.
Muster America. Until next time.
Good night.